Hello, and welcome to Want Anything from the Shop, podcast number 4, I believe. On this wonderful Sunday evening or morning, depending on where you're listening from, we have a lot of super interesting news to divulge, starting with the not-so-enthusiastic movie news on Suicide Squad. First of all, everyone in Toronto has been nonstop commenting about how there's a Batmobile on their street and such and so forth.
That's a spoiler right there. Like, come on.
To some length, it is to be expected. I don't know. People aren't very. I mean, if they see something famous happening, they've got to take a photo of it and tell the rest of the world about how interesting and cool they are to have stumbled upon such a thing.
I mean, it's good that we're getting a lot of recognition in Toronto for like a huge city set, but it would be so much nicer if they had a closed set where people can just not post a spoiler every day. Because I know there are too many things in this movie that I don't like already, and I wish I went into it without knowing those negative things and learn about it myself.
I don't know. I guess at this day and age, it's kind of unavoidable, so to speak. I know, but spoilers can be dull, obviously unwanted, unless you are a psychopath. But let's go on to something much more interesting, which is The Martian, which is based on the book, which is actually free, so if you haven't read it yet, there's an EPUB online by the original author. Unfortunately, it is being directed by none other than Ridley Scott. The photos, at least, there have been comparisons to Interstellar based on the cast, and I do not like that because there is no veil of pretension in The Martian as opposed to Nolan's Interstellar.
Well, Matt Damon and Jessica Chastain are in it, and they're both astronauts, just like in Interstellar. Well, Jessica Chastain is an astronaut, but it does seem very interesting. But you know, it's under the shadow of Interstellar, whether you love or hate that movie. Or like someone like me who's just okay with the movie.
I'm just sort of expecting, okay. See, that is the most polarizing view of all, because you either hate it or you love it. And if there is a middle ground that you're standing on, then there is clearly something wrong with you. The actual answer is that you absolutely hate Interstellar.
You're not allowed to give me my own opinions, Mandy.
Yes, I am. Spoon feeding. No, I'm just shoving it down your throat.
Okay, Interstellar is something I just watch, and I'm fine with watching. And it's just like, if it happened to be on TV for some reason, I'll watch it. It's fun.
Okay, so let's move on to Cannes. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but like, is there a French way to go about this? Like,
it's just Cannes, but the S
I know,
is
but
silent.
You don't say it maliciously enough.
Cannes.
So it doesn't sound properly French, considering how they will kick you out if you do not wear high heels as a woman. But anyway, Cannes is sort of unavoidable, so we'll have to talk about it. So tell us about the wonderful movies to keep an eye
on. The first one to really talk about is the grand prize winner of the festival, which came to shocker to everyone. A little French Tamil film named Deepan, which no one anticipated except for the Coen brothers, I guess, who announced the award and gave it to the director. But I wasn't excited for that movie. Judging from what I've been seeing with the reviews, it doesn't look as great as the jury thought it is. Other movies that are more interesting that are out of competition include Mad Max Fury Road, which we just saw. Great movie. Inside Out by Pixar, which I'm hearing is also pretty amazing. A weird movie named The Lobster, which is Colin Farrell. He's in this hotel and he has 45 hours to find a mate. And if he doesn't, he gets turned into an animal and he wants to become a lobster if that ever happens. It's a dystopian movie. It's weird.
Oh, wow. Never would have guessed.
Another movie that Lauren and I have been awaiting to see, hopefully soon, is Carol, which stars Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara. And
of course they would cast Cate Blanchett as a girl named Carol. That is the whitest name. Is the cast whitewashed? Because I would really want for that to happen.
Yeah, it's very whitewashed.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
What isn't whitewash is a movie called Mia Madre, which stars John Turturro, It's an Italian movie, and it's about I think it's about a dying mother and the time that the son spends with his mother. And also, it's probably going at TIFF because it's a Canadian filmmaker. But it's a movie called Sicario by Denis Villeneuve, who's going to direct Blade Runner 2 and stuff.
Right.
I'm really excited. It's getting really great reviews. And then lastly, a movie that got the Grand Prix award. Runner-up is Son of Saul. I don't know anything about it, but it sounds better than Deep End. If that's even how you pronounce it.
Let's go with the benefit of the doubt for now.
Interesting Cannes news. I don't know. Like I watched like the live broadcast for the Cannes press interviews. They're trying really hard to make Cannes more likable, I guess. But from how things were done in the past, and I guess this year with the whole women who are wearing flats versus heels thing, Cannes kind of sucks, and it's overly pretentious. But you can't doubt like the movies that come out every year at Cannes that make it big in the indie circuit and receives lots of praise from ordinary viewers just like us.
Well, there are definitely more interesting film festivals to look forward to this year.
Yeah,
that
TIFF.
do not involve France. Right. I have a lot of these friends who are so enthusiastic about volunteering and applying to be a volunteer. But anyone who has been a volunteer knows that it is not the life that they signed up for.
I'm going to sign up for that life. I don't care. I just want to see...
Have you?
I have, and I'm just waiting.
You may yet have a chance to molest Alan Rickman as he walks into his van.
Why would
I completely had a chance.
Why would I molest Alan Rickman?
Because you can. Get it?
Should I just make Die Hard and Harry Potter references in front of him?
Sure. Do that. Also,
right.
see, Benedict Cumberbatch was at TIFF last year, and I managed to exercise restraint somehow.
Wait, wasn't it raining last year?
It was for a portion, but it was very sunny on the day that he arrived. No coincidence, of course.
Aw, okay.
Right. I actually don't care that much, but it's like you have to be part of the circle jerk that just defines Benedict Cumberbatch's little posse. Let's go straight to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Okay, do you know about this movie in the beginning?
No, absolutely not. In
the early 2000s, they released what was the catalyst that ended Sean Connery's acting career in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which, from what I'm hearing, was a really good comic book, but the movie was total shitballs because they changed the story dramatically. They changed the characters. It stars like a bunch of famous literary figures in one room together, solving mysteries or something, or fighting other literary characters. Right. It's kind of like Penny Dreadful, but not good.
But not good.
It's funny that this is getting a reboot, and hopefully this is going to also suck and we can laugh about it.
Great.
But you know, maybe the comic source material could be adapted really well, and it's going to be an okay movie.
If it is like something, but not good, it is insulting to compare it to that something. And therefore, we just have to say that it is terrible without likening it to something that's much better.
I think we should just read books from now on and just not watch movies.
I think so. Yeah, we're just going to become a book podcast now.
Awesome, let's do it.
We're going to make an ebook podcast. It's like read along with us as we go and review each page.
That sounds really fun.
Turn to page 216 as we delve into Hermione as she reads tea leaves.
Hey, if we're reading Prisoner of Azkaban, it's going to be awesome, and I'm totally down for that.
It'll happen one day. We haven't found the rock bottomness. But moving on to Transformers, which I'm not enthusiastic to talk about, but I guess we can talk about how it's going to be bad, most likely.
So I just added 2 writers, Andrew Barber and Gabriel Ferrari from Ant-Man. It's yet to be seen if this movie is good.
If Gabriel Ferrari is an asshole, because, you know, it's kind of bad luck to have that name. Just be named after, I don't know. I think it'd be even funnier if, like, his first name was Ferrari.
Ferrari.
His parents are awful.
I'm feeling that came from experience.
As it will for you when you
Oh,
encounter such people. So this is an animated prequel set on Cybertron.
so they claim.
So they claim. It's just going to turn out to be some sort of cheesy preteen movie. And being as we're above all that, let's move on to the live-action Beyblade movie developed by Paramount.
Let it rip.
Oh no! It's
Let's
going to be
move.
so campy. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Let it rip!
we're moving on from one stupid Hasbro toy product into another. And Beyblade, I remember the days when I used to watch that on TV. And I used to yell at my top while I was harassing my friends.
It was honestly a very exciting time back then. But now it's just not funny anymore. It's like one of those things that you just wish you never knew about. Unfortunately.
What are you talking about? This is hilarious. A Beyblade live action movie.
I know, but it
That's
just destroys, it just corrodes your faith in humanity. It doesn't destroy it, it corrodes it, like just a little at a time. You watch it and you end at your existential crisis as the credits roll.
Okay, you know what? I hope that there is going to be a lot of buzz with this Beyblade movie, and a Beyblade in the middle of the movie becomes a transformer, and it transforms, and it's a universe for Transformers and Beyblade because it's all Hasbro.
Right.
Because that's what they're
And
doing.
of course, bronies.
Oh yes, add some bronies and some Dr. Beats pills or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a stupid movie.
Okay, so moving on to the cancellation of Tron 3. Probably a good call.
Okay, were you even excited for Tron 3?
No.
Exactly, no one was, apparently.
No one was. Well, the thing is, you can't make such, who gave you the idea to create such a shitty reboot, I suppose, and then want to create something on top of that?
It looked pretty, I guess.
I mean, yeah, but really it was very lukewarm. The only time I would actually be okay with watching the Tron Legacy is if it was in the theaters. Because that is quite the experience, especially with the Daft Punk.
I haven't watched it yet, though, but would you recommend watching it?
You might like it for certain sequences, but...
Okay.
As I certainly did. But I only watch it for those. It's kind of like Pacific Rim, where there are definitely sequences you can fast forward to and enjoy, but otherwise would be a little bored, I suppose.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not the same in the theater as it is on TV. Spider-Man.
Apparently, Asa Butterfield was in final talks, according to some sources, and then there's contradiction that a bunch of other actors are being brought in for the Spider-Man screen tests who just flew into the Captain America Civil War shoot, and they're gonna screen all that during a press conference to decide which one is gonna be new Spider-Man. It's either Butterfield, Tom Holland, Judah Lewis, Matthew Lintz, Charlie Rowe, or Charlie Plummer out of like 1,000 kids. So we don't know anything about these people except for Asa Butterfield because they're in minor roles of minor projects and I guess a few major projects, but as minor characters. So there's nothing really to discuss in terms of their filmography.
Who cares? Right.
I care. I love Spider-Man.
Oh... That's so sweet.
I'm romantically.
I'm so sad.
I'm blindly in love with Spider-Man no matter what. Okay,
ignorance is not bliss in this area. But okay.
Shut up! Just let me enjoy this.
Okay, let's move on to television news for this week. There's apparently a revival of the X-Files. What's that about?
So one of the actors came out and said that the next 9 episodes of X-Files isn't a conclusion to the series, but rather a continuation, and they're planning more and more seasons to revive into the show, I guess, and make it a very, very long TV show that I will not have time to catch up with because it's like 1 million episodes right now.
Yeah, I thought they were done, and it turns out they just want to milk the cow as much as they can.
Milk.
And I am assuming to replace
Jon Stewart's Daily Show. He stepped down a while ago, and Trevor Noah is going to be his replacement. And
as you can tell, I do not watch
TV.
What are they called? No, it's
Talk
that genre. The
talk
parody
show.
talk show format thing.
It's
Yeah.
a political talk show with serious
Political
issues.
commentary, right? With lots of pencils being thrown at the audience.
Yep.
But yeah, so Jon Stewart's The Daily Show.
Yeah, there was a trailer released with Trevor Noah finding his way around that set. He was like, "Oh, this is mine now." And then Jon Stewart makes a cameo, and he's like, "Oh!" And then the trailer ends, and it's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah is going to premiere this September on the 28th on Comedy Central. Looking forward to that. Looking forward.
It's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have Ash versus Evil Dead, a teaser that just came out.
So Bruce Campbell was calling bullshit on a Evil Dead sequel to the remake of the original The Evil Dead called Evil Dead. Lots of Evil Dead there. And then eventually he's like, okay, we are making a sequel. I was lying, but I was lying before and I don't know what's going on. And he's very excited for this project, I hope. It's going to be a show on Stars. I hope it's going to be twice the amount of gore and blood and horror and comedy as the other installments in this series, because I think it's one of the greatest horror franchises ever, if not the greatest one out of, because Evil Dead gets a lot of crap about changing genres in every movie, but I think that's one of the charms that Evil Dead has, and it's going to be really exciting. And I hope Mandy will get a chance to watch some Evil Dead movies.
Probably not happening in this life, but get it?
I
Maybe
hate you.
in the next life.
I hate you so much. You don't understand.
Thank you. I will take that as brownie points. So let's give our recommendations for this brownie. Say no to drugs. Not those kind of brownies. Right, recommendations. So we are reviewing Tomorrowland this week, but if you haven't seen it yet, we highly recommend that you don't see it in lieu of all of the other films that are done by Radbird.
Go watch Ratatouille.
Yeah, go watch Ratatouille and go watch The Incredibles if you haven't seen it, because that would have been incredible. And what else? Oh, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which, according to Raymond, is quite excellent.
It is quite excellent. Because I watched all his movies to prepare for Tomorrowland, and it was a huge disappointment, as I would have expected from what Mandy told me when she watched it. Oh, right. I know. What even went down in Tomorrowland? It's just, it's so stupid.
I know.
It's so stupid. All right.
I know. We'll have to talk about it, unfortunately. But before then, might we redirect you to Mad Max? If you still have not seen it, which is anything short of a miracle, definitely go catch that movie, because it's much more worth your money than Tomorrowland. But if you're still interested in George Clooney and what's-her-face fighting on evil together, by all means, listen to our review as we trash on it.
Oh, that
will be so much fun.
I
wish I was more euphemistic about it.
Well, you're a pessimist.
Sorry.
And I'm an optimist, but I'm not
You're an optimist
for this movie.
Right. No.
What have you been watching?
Right. What have I been watching? Mad Men mostly. I still haven't finished it. But it's going places, and I enjoy it. And if you have not seen Mad Men, I guess it is a bit of a time investment, but since the 7th season has ended recently, you might as well finish it, as I am trying to do now.
Good job. Are you enjoying the whatever season you're on right now?
Season 6, and yes, and they are playing better music, seeing as that we're going into the 6th season and so on.
Yeah, the music does get really awesome.
Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yes, that was a great episode.
And then she just steps into the elevator, and it's like, whoa. By I mean Peggy.
Those are the greatest moments of the show, and whatever. I'm not going to talk about the finale anymore. I'm done with that.
Yeah, he is as they say in modern day vernacular, I'm so done.
I can't even right now.
I'm turned down right now. I'm super turned down. Anyway, what also turns me down is Tomorrowland, and we are going to start a discussion on that now. First of all, no spoilers. And then later we'll go in depth, which is going to be a challenge, believe us.
Okay, but it's really hard to talk about this movie without spoilers, since from the trailers, it's hard to determine what this movie is even about.
That's true. And you go in with expectations that
And we're
evidently don't come true.
and we're gonna lower your expectations severely today.
So that you may indeed go and watch it and enjoy yourself. So, right, directed. It is a movie directed by, drumroll,
Brad Bird.
Brad Bird, who, as of course, as we mentioned earlier, did Ratatouille and Mission Impossible, as Protocol. So there are some. I mean, he is based on the stuff that he's directed in the past. Quite a whimsical character, and that's sort of the vibe that you get from the Tomorrowland trailer. If you've seen it, if not, then don't. But basically, what the sort of vibe that you get from this movie is that it's about this entirely new dimension where the city is futuristic and it's sort of a paradise or a utopia for inventors and creative minds, which slightly felt a little like some kind of segregation scheme. Because clearly this is a wonderful magical land for inventors only, or smart people only. But yeah, so we have this hermit guy who, surprise, surprise, is played by George Clooney, none other, and this young girl who is promising, played by
Britt Robertson.
Her, Britt Robertson, and they have to team up and stop this evil plan from hatching and destroying the Earth. So that is the premise of Tomorrowland, which I don't have a problem with necessarily, because there are movies like Mad Max who can take very simple premises and make them very absorbing and real. What do you think? I've talked quite a bit.
Okay, I think that Tomorrowland has really great intentions. By the time that you're done with the movie, it sets up this huge world. It has a good message or whatever. It has some really in-your-face product placement. I guess that's good for the economy or something. It has George Clooney's face, which is already really nice to look at. It has some really cool characters, which don't really get... They're really confused to like watch and understand. It also has like one of the most terrible scripts that I've ever come across by Brad Bird and Damon Lindelof, who did Lost, Cowboys and Aliens, Prometheus, Star Trek Into Darkness, World War Z, and The Leftovers, which happens to be really awesome.
Well, the feeling that I got from the sensation, at least from this movie, was that the entire thing was just sort of exposition, and there was never really any real conflict throughout. I mean, I felt like it was very small and detached arcs involving this grand world, but not actually being absorbed within it. So you had like this entire 2-hour-long advertisement of this world, and you never really got a taste in the end. And that is the most disappointing thing of all.
It felt forever until the movie actually got going, because I was sitting there waiting for the movie to start, after an hour, and it still hasn't started yet. Like, what is
and then you realize that it has started, but it's like just like it's so backstory. Everything is a flashback. I don't know. The story just felt muddled, and it wasn't strong. And although they did do a very good job of the world building, you will actually really enjoy the way that they depict Tomorrowland, like animation-wise. But we don't really, we get a glimpse, and the rest of it is just this little, chastising thing that they do. Oh, that was a heavily mispronounced word, chastising.
I think it would have been really, a better decision to make Tomorrowland into a short film rather than a full feature.
Right. It could completely have been condensed into a short film, and it would have been lovely.
It could, the first trailer that we saw of her picking up the pin and transporting her to this field into Tomorrowland, that would have been a great short film. That's it. End it off there. We're great. And Brad Bird's reputation would have been still respected.
Yeah, this movie is a flop, but I am willing to forgive Brad Bird.
What do you think of the performances of the actors?
I felt like George Clooney was just playing George Clooney. I did enjoy Rafi Cassidy as Athena. I mean, she
Yeah,
was interesting,
she's a welcome surprise to the cast.
but there is that. I mean, I don't feel like any of the characters were interesting or fleshed out. If they had been fleshed out, then of course it would correlate and they would be interesting. But alas,
Now I hear that you have like a huge hard on for science fiction. How's the
yes,
how's the world building compared to films such as Blade Runner and
right.
whatever? I don't care for science fiction apparently.
I'm just like yes, yes, I
Yes,
do have
I
a hard
love it.
on.
I love it. Oh
Acute
yes.
description, right? Okay. The thing with Blade Runner or 2001 um, is that they will introduce the world and they won't give it exposition because this is a sort of world where this plot just kicks off right from the beginning, and you are to follow it along like a little symphony, in my mind. But with Tomorrowland, it was like, oh, hey guys, welcome to this movie, this story, this world. We are two quirky scientists who love making stuff, and this is our story, and this is how we stumbled upon this wonderful world. And like the entire thing just felt very spoon-fed and ham-fisted.
It
I
feels
don't
like
really
that.
feel
It feels like that whenever they're trying to introduce a new plot element, they actually take the time to slow down the movie to explain it to you, like line by line. It's like, oh, this is how this thing works. This is what
right
this world's about. This is what you're supposed to do in the movie. As if like it doesn't give any room for us to really think for ourselves
explore it
about
on
what.
our own.
Yeah,
And that is really quite a fatal mistake, just because, like, if we compare Mad Max to Tomorrowland, Mad Max has a dystopian world, and you have no idea what the hell is going on for, like, almost all of it. But it is a world that you get to explore on your own. As much as they have a very linear storyline, it felt the opposite of that. Like, there is so much very different ways that you could look at it and from all these different angles. But with Tomorrowland, it's like this big world of opportunity, which ironically is very linear. Because the way that they show it is just doesn't give you much room to explore or imagine things on your own. So it felt very contrived.
yeah. It was really like I felt nothing during this movie. I wasn't excited for whatever is coming out next. I wasn't into the message, although it's a really great and respected message to, tell kids about. Which ironically, there were no kids in my audience. There were only adults, full grown adults
That
who.
sounds like the most depressing movie experience.
It
Like all
was
of these adults stumble in and they're like, "Oh,
it was a Tuesday afternoon in an almost empty theater, and this
right."
movie isn't doing well. It's being beat out
No.
by Pitch Perfect, and I guess now by San Andreas and Mad Max.
Right.
And Age of Adeline, which is a terrible movie
Which
apparently, but
also
it's
was
winning.
terrible. It's better. That is quite a bad sign.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, the technology was interesting, but I just don't feel like they could have elaborated on it and they didn't. Like they were choosing all of the wrong things to focus on in this movie, and they had so much potential because like it is this world building takes effort. But if you're going to spoon feed it to the audience like that, then no one is actually going to be interested in what you have to say or what the message is going to even be at the end.
yeah. Like
So,
I'm aware that Brad Bird isn't a horrible writer. He has written some really good stuff with Pixar and with Mission Impossible and whatever and Iron Giant. All really
mm,
great movies. It's just that maybe with collaborating with Damon Lindelof, everything became so on the nose and became really annoying. It became like someone was trying to slap you across the face and then
right.
just direct you to whatever they're trying to make you pay attention to. And it's just not for me.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that's really all we can milk out of the non-spoilery review.
Yeah. Go watch the
But
movie.
yeah, look at our wonderful, promising review that we have. See, it's funny. I'm going to say the whole thing about how Mad Max is about the dystopian world and uh, Tomorrowland is a utopia, but realistically speaking, it is reversed. Quite reversed.
It's the very opposite movie between these two. And I think the better one is undoubtedly Fury Road.
Right.
Everyone should just go watch Mad Max. Come on.
I know. We've been like really adamantly pushing people towards it, like almost aggressively, like you gotta watch it, which is perfect, right?
Yeah, you gotta watch
With
Mad
like
Max.
mumbling through that little gimp mask.
Oh, by the way, George Miller just said that his Blu-ray version of Mad Max is probably going to include like a black and white silent movie version of the movie. It's gonna be really fun to watch, and he says that it's the best version in his opinion. So yeah,
after all that color correct.
let's continue to talk about Mad Max and just avoid Tomorrowland.
But unfortunately, we will have to talk a little bit about the specific mistakes that we encountered in Tomorrowland. And at this point, we would like to warn people that we will be spoiling stuff. Feel free to stick around, I think.
All right.
So you know exactly what's wrong with it.
Okay. What's your biggest problem with this movie?
My biggest problem with this movie.
There are so many.
Right. It's kind of like asking me what my favorite movie is, but like this one is making me concentrate on bad things, like that I would rather not consider.
Yeah, like Hugh Laurie's stupid costume.
Right, let's start with that one, actually. Hugh Laurie, I don't know why, like, what got into their heads. They must have thought it was funny if they were like, oh, let's make Dr. House this evil megalomaniac that, like, wants to destroy the world. And they, like, put a cape on him and had him speak British. Speak British. I am the most racist person, accidentally.
You are, yeah.
Had him speak British English. Which I still am not accustomed to. That was a shocker, actually.
His native accent, and you're like, no. I deny your native accent,
I am denying it. I'm shutting it out. I did enjoy certain parts of the exposition. It is a very fun movie in a certain respect, but I feel like they messed up a lot of it, and it could have been good if they just moved it towards a different direction. One of the biggest things that bothered me was definitely that little pedophilia thing going on between George Clooney and Athena.
It's not pedophilia if Athena is a robot.
If Athena is a robot, right? It's what do we call that? Metropolis.
Robot. Yeah.
George Clooney and Athena. It just feels, first of all, it's unrealistic because first of all, you fall in love with a robot for a couple years and then you decide to fuck off back to your homeland where you don't keep contact with her and you are perfectly capable of moving on with your life, but no, you're just like infatuated with this robot for many, many decades.
Okay, how old is George Clooney? He's like late 50s or something.
Late 50s or something. Yeah, or something. So we've got to add that cautionary or something because we don't really know.
Really
he's been 50 for 20 years.
He looks really good for his age though, but okay, he has no excuse to be in love with that robot. Even like the way that they announced it, it's like you left me, you ruined my life. It's not my fault that I fall, and then he just like, oh, he falls in love with the robot. It's so obvious. You don't have to stop the word at the F to understand that he's in love with this stupid robot.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that it was like it was a kid romance when they first met, right? I mean, like he laid eyes on her, thought she was pretty, but I don't really feel like that. Like it's very unreasonable thing that I felt they just sort of put in there to appeal to certain audiences. Anyway, Athena herself was quite interesting, and they never elaborated on like how she came to be, who she was, or like what her purpose necessarily is. Although we do like know about it somewhat.
I think Athena by Rafi Casti was the scene stealer for the entire movie. Even when she's first introduced, I thought like, oh, it's gonna be like a general audience for kids version of Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And it kind of is, except she's a badass robot. Like
I think I liked her more than the main female character, who was too much like happy sunshine.
Yeah, okay, the way that they started the movie was with a countdown and a flash forward and back to a flashback and back to a flash forward. The video vlog thing about saving
it did not work at all.
It was so pointless because it was done in a way that the first thing you see is George Clooney And then when George Clooney is introduced later in the movie, his son
There's some tension.
The sun is blocking out like his face and stuff, and you're like, who's this mysterious person? But we already know it's George Clooney. So what the
We've seen
hell?
his face. Yeah, I know, and I think they just did it for the sake of the quirky established like scene in the beginning. It's like they want to be clear that this movie is going to be fun and packed with goods, but that clearly did not happen.
Well,
and they also had
they tried at the end though.
Right. Oh, right. Oh, no. I blocked out the ending from my mind, and it's all coming back to me now. Okay, let's be honest. There are plot points that are intriguing. Like, when she receives a pin, her spatial awareness, or like, it is connected to the real world, so she can't just wander around in Tomorrowland. And she has to sort of find an open space to wander around in. Otherwise, she'll just keep bumping into things.
At one point, she fell downstairs, and if I fell downstairs like that, I would not be okay. And she just kind of walks it off.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, my bad.
Oh, I'm so clumsy.
Keeping me alive." NASA dad. Yeah. They did introduce interesting things about the movie, but they never either they would just drop them all together, or I don't know, like elaborate in the most shitty way possible.
I thought the way they introduced Tomorrowland, once she got into there through that pin in the commercial, there was a long shot that Brad Bird used to introduce the environments. It looked amazing.
Yeah, it looked great. And that was like the primer for like what you were going to expect out of this movie, but that was the best part. That was the best part of the movie.
And then you get like this shitty Tomorrowland, which is, I admit, is a really good plot point or a way to write this movie, is to like everything that you hope for has gone to shit in this Tomorrowland whatever. And it's weird that it's only a few people who lives in Tomorrowland. There's Hugh Laurie and a bunch of his croonies who are like
little pop band,
little cop men and robots who are introduced and are kind of interesting and creepy, but they are forgotten at the very end.
They just randomly these smiling robots chasing after Athena and Casey, and then all of a sudden they just disappear near the end because it's already the boss fight with Hugh Laurie.
You said that there's this cast member that I didn't even notice until you said that there was during the Star Wars shop scene.
Keegan from Key and Peele was some kind of like store clerk, this huge nerd, and like I guess he was sort of the comic relief, but he wasn't really. I mean, Raymond didn't even notice that it was there.
Yeah, he was very forgettable. I don't even remember much of that scene. All I remember is just Athena coming in and using that awesome time stopping bubble gun. Mm-hmm. It's
which
so
is
much
good.
Fun.
Yeah. Like there are so many interesting things, right? That just like it's like, oh yeah, look, that's so cool. Let's move on to the next little widget that you have up your sleeve. What bothered me as well was towards the end when they were having a bunch of fights, like to each their own. But those robots that sort of, I mean, at some point I believe it was Casey or Athena who was controlling a robot, like one of those mechabots.
Oh yeah, it was Athena.
And fighting another mechabot. Which I found cringeworthy because I honestly feel as though they put that in to appeal to the mecha fans.
My friend said that whenever he watches a science fiction movie, he keeps thinking it's gonna be apocalyptic, and then there are gonna be mechs introduced and Gundams, and everything becomes Gundam.
There are always mechs.
And I guess this appeals to him at that level, but like he doesn't like that movie, and when we watched it together, none of us liked that movie. Tomorrowland.
Which movie? Tomorrowland, right?
Yeah.
And you can't just put mechs in for the sake of having mechs. It's not like Pacific Rim where like that's the entire premise and everything, but it's like they just decided that this is our last ditch effort to make this movie actually good, and therefore we are going to put in mechabots.
The more you talk about Tomorrowland and science fiction, I just want to go back to watching Pacific Rim again. Because that movie had really cheesy ideas, but it's done in the most spectacular way ever.
Right?
Yeah. And plus, I really love Idris Elba.
Yes, he is. I believe there is something that someone said about how Idris Elba is sort of the the man who, if you could turn him into some kind of liquid, it would be cologne.
Nice. Yes,
Right?
that's perfect. Yes. There's no way that Idris Elba can be
You see him
uncool.
and you smell it off of him in the posters and such. It's
I
like,
smell
oh,
it. Yeah, I smell it every time I talk about him. It's amazing. It's like he's trying to contact me.
that's another nifty gadget that you will hopefully in a different time experience in Tomorrowland, being able to smell when
But,
someone is calling you.
okay, what do you think of the villain, quote unquote, of Tomorrowland?
No.
No.
He was so one dimensional and he just there was no build up to him necessarily. Like there were villains everywhere, correct? But
No.
Hugh Laurie was the kingpin. And at the end it was just sort of like, oh look, it's these two dudes having a feud because of daddy issues.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? Like I don't know. I just didn't feel any tension from it at all. I never really took him seriously.
But it was done really nice during that. I guess the climax of the movie when everyone's fighting was when there's this technology that was introduced earlier in the movie where you can see forward in time in a projection right beside you in a platform or something. And then Athena sees George Clooney die and gets, I guess, pulverized by the crazy gun that they use in this movie. And then she jumps in and saves his life, which was kind of predictable, but it was. I'm glad that they included that technology there that they introduced, which is the only thing. One of the rare moments where in this movie they introduce something in the very beginning and they actually go back to it to tie it up. You know?
Yeah. Well, all in all, this movie was could have been a lot, but just ended up being disappointing.
Yeah, kind of
And
how
we are upset.
it kind of just drags on a bit, just like how Athena says, "I'm gonna blow up," but it takes 10 minutes until she blows up.
Yeah, so there's so much stretched out tension that it just doesn't feel authentic enough as a futuristic movie. So anyway, I think that would wrap up our review of Tomorrowland as well as the news of this week.
Yeah, I hope you guys don't feed wolves or anything because that sounds stupid.
Yeah. What an awful line.
It
And I
has
almost
no.
felt like they were saying that as if like no one has ever heard of it before.
It was just a random monologue. It just felt so out of place.
They just put it in to like tie it into the themes, and that was the thing that I was probably most annoyed about.
That was stupid.
Anyway, that's enough about Tomorrowland. We are all in sour moods now because of this movie. So let's end it off with go watch Mad Max.
Go watch Mad Max. Watch it again.
We are saying that mildly aggressively. Remember that.
I'm gonna see it again. Actually.
I want to too, actually.
Yeah.
We can do a double review. It's like we're going to talk about everything we talked about last week, but even better because we watched it twice.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, that is it for this week. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the flip side.
On the flip side.
But
We'll think of better.
We won't call it Tomorrowland. We'll call it something nicer.
We'll think of better ways to end off the show. We promise. We'll be very catchy and funny and comedic.
It'll happen maybe sometime before 2017. Right, so see you next week. Peace out.
All right. See you. Bye.